My name is Liam and I'm here with Yaku Kriek at his house in Centurion, here with Tian Mare. And we're here to speak a little bit about Commiphora as bonsai. Yaku, thank you very much for having us.
Pleasure.
Okay. Yaku, you know, when I was in the landscape industry, Commiphora was really not in our vocabulary. We were working in sort of the Highveld, Gauteng region, and Commiphora was definitely just not on the list of trees to use, and it was not something that I really came across until I started to do bonsai. And it's just one of those trees that you see more often for bonsai than in the landscaping industry. But I wondered if you wanted to tell us a little bit about the species and just give us a little bit of a background about this genus.
Yes, you're correct that the genus Commiphora is not used in landscaping or gardens often. It's very much used in the veld, and it's very, very interesting tree. It's got features and characteristics that other trees doesn't have. The word Commiphora actually comes from a Greek word with commi means gum or resin, and phora means bearing. So it's a gum-bearing tree. That's where the name comes from. Yeah. And if you actually do cut it, the branches or the stem, it makes a resin, a watery resin that runs out. And it becomes hard. Sometimes and it's got a very aromatic smell.
Yes.
So that's one of the characteristics. And there's, I believe there's something like 208 species in the world yes. of Commiphora, and in South Africa I think there's 38. And you know, we don't know about them. I think in bonsai we use at the most 5, I would say. So very interesting tree and very suited for bonsai. And I personally don't think used enough. This is the neglecto, which is the green stem, and the others, the Harvey-eye, and that makes a coppery thing. So very, very distinct characteristics for the Commiphora, yes.
Actually, Yaku, when I joined the Pretoria Bonsai Kai, my very first meeting at the club was your presentation on Commiphora. And what you actually mentioned at that presentation was the biblical references that the genus actually has.
Yes, that's very interesting. So I think there are 2 places that are researched that is mentioned in the Bible.
That's cool.
The one was used for a balm for some king, and the other, there's a Commiphora myrrhae. Yeah. And that myrrh is one of the presents that the wise men gave to the child Jesus when he was born. Yes. Gold and myrrh. So it's mentioned there, and they think that Commiphora myrrh is the one mentioned in the Bible. Yes, so very interesting.
Yes, that myrrh is an extract of that gum or resin.
Yes.
That and of a particular species, I think found more to the North Africa or to the Middle East. So I discovered it. I discovered the genus when I started bonsai. Tell us, Yaku, how did you come about discovering the species?
It's very interesting that the Commiphora really grows in drier places, in rocky outcrops and mountains, rocky mountains and that. Yet when I was in Pietermaritzburg doing bonsai, I got to know them through the Durban clubs.
Yes.
You know, Durban is high rainfall, humid. And the Durban guys had the most amazing Commiphora, and I got to know it through them. I then went home and I thought I'm going to look for one. I searched nurseries, and like you said, they weren't available. And I found a Commiphora, bought it, took it home, and after a couple of weeks, when I read up nicely, I saw I actually bought the neglecta.
Yes.
And it was never used by anybody else. It wasn't in the Durban clubs, and I was so disappointed. I just chucked it in the corner somewhere that I wasted my money. So yeah, I got to know that through the Durban guys actually.
So what actually happened was, Yaku, you were actually hoping to get a Harvey-eye for that flaking bark.
That's correct.
And then when you got a neglector, you truly actually did neglect it.
I definitely did neglect it. Like I said, I put it in the corner, and it grew a long thing. I don't know if the camera can show. And then, if I can talk about this one, all this was underground. This was all roots. And the piece that was growing in the middle there, I eventually cut that off with some roots, and I wanted to make quite a tall literati style, and I just left this one in the black bag. And these branches or stems made long things. I just left them. They were like 2 meter long. And one day I said, oh, can't I do something with it? And I just cut it all back to different lengths, and it grew from again, and I created this thing.
Yaku, this neglected bonsai of yours, I always thought represented or looked like a ship. And it was always in the shadow of its like more attractive Harvey eyes, and I always thought we could call this ship Cinderella. But since then, it has actually sailed to many exhibitions, and including page 12 of my book. And it's always drawn a lot of attention because of its very, very unique appearance.
Yes, no, thank you very much for that, and I'm really honored that it's in your book. The wonderful thing about this is the reduction of leaf size.
Yeah.
I mean, you can actually look at this one, and it fruits, it makes flowers obviously, and then it fruits, and you can see the many fruits on this one.
Yeah, fruiting.
And they eventually go bright red, and then if the birds doesn't eat it, they make a pitch black seed, which I've never tried to grow. I'm sure you could. But very tough tree, very easy to grow. I like easy things. So this is one of those really magic easy trees to grow, and you get nice results.
Yaku, 1 year on the Pretoria Bonsai group, WhatsApp group, you shared with us the very strangeness of the roots when you repotted it. And I wondered if you would tell us about your observation of this species' roots.
Yeah, these things got very few roots. Even the Harvey eye and the others we use, but this one especially, it's got hardly any fine roots. And when I thought at one stage, okay, it's been in a pot, a bonsai pot for a while, I better replant it. And when I took it out, I was so shocked that it had hardly any fine roots. It had big potato-like roots, like the baobab does. And I planted it back in the pot, and it didn't miss a beat. It just carried on growing. And then I took all those patata wortel things, and I planted them in one big pot, and they all took with hardly any fine roots. So they're very, very easy. And I also didn't mention they're very easy from cuttings.
Yes. Well, actually, what's notable there is actually from truncheon cuttings.
Yes. Yeah, you can grow. I mean, like I said, I'll cut the big one off here. We can show you a Harvey eye now that I also wanted the bottom, cut the top off, and just stuck it in sand, and it grew. So very easy from cuttings, yes.
What I would like to do now, Yaku, is to go and have a look at those root cuttings, and let's see how they're doing so far.
Great, I can show you. So Liam, yes, I just mentioned about that chip thing that I cut off the top piece of it, and this is it actually. I wanted to use this. And one thing I didn't mention is they don't need a lot of water. They don't actually want a lot of water. And I nearly killed this by overwatering. Yes. And I'm actually worried now with all this rain too, almost protected. But so this is, I would guess, this is about 25 years old. This was the top. And then the other one was the one that took those patata roots off. Like I mentioned just now, the resin, I just cut a little branch off there just before you came, and it's already pushing out that watery resin. I don't know if the camera will see it, but that actually, if it's not a lot, it hardens as a little blob on that cut. And if it's a lot, it actually runs down the stem and hardens. And that's a resin that's got that aromatic smell, which is on different species, different smell, but very nice. And also what I didn't mention, they heal scars tremendously. If you look at those scars, those were big branches that are cut there and there and there. They just heal over like anything without big effort. So very great tree for, I think there was a big branch here, and you can't even see it now, but there was a cut there.
So this was in actual fact, in essence, a truncheon cutting as well?
Correct.
Yes.
Well, it had a few roots on because it was the very top of
okay.
So the other roots were the bottom. I cut it off so with a few roots. So yeah.
So then that actually means that ship was actually a root cutting.
Yes.
Almost, yeah. Well, then let's have a look at the other root cuttings that we took, Yaku. Yeah, let's have a look at these root cuttings.
So these were all those potato things that I told you about. And like you know, when they took and I've now, well, the two of us are doing a bit of an experiment now
Yes.
with different soil mixtures. And your soil mixture are the black pots and mine are the green. Now I must admit at this stage I can't see much difference, but like you see, they all took. I think one of mine didn't take, but I didn't think it would take. But very easy to grow, and you remember there had hardly any fine roots. So
Yeah. I do think that so what Yaku and I did was a soil experiment. We took half of the root cuttings and put it in a Yaku soil mix and the other half in mine, and they were color coded. So the black ones are mine, but it does look to me that yours are performing a little bit better, Yaku. But I found these strange looking root cuttings very funny because I thought that they looked a lot like mandrake, which is it reminded me of the Harry Potter movie that the mandrake is in. And I thought to myself, these very strange, awkward-looking things. I wondered, what are we going to do with them?
well, maybe we'll do something funny with them, and create something unusual. You know, look at that ceiling there too.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, I was thinking a thing like this. Maybe, I mean, it's so thin there. Maybe one day one cut it there and plant it again and start with a big thing. But yeah, it's something, you know, we like to play. And this is one of those things we're going to play still in future.
The idea that I had, Yaku, is I wondered if we could create almost like a haunted forest of Ents.
Yes, that will be a great idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Emil, Yaku.
Yeah.
In the late winter of 2024, I attended the event When the Leaves Leave, hosted by the Pretoria Bonsai Kai. One of the presenters at that event was Gary House from KwaZulu-Natal. I anticipated meeting Gary as he was providing key information on the Premnamoensis, a truly great South African bonsai discovery. At the event, in the venue's tokenoma display, Gary exhibited the most amazing Commiphora woodii. I contacted Gary and he obliged to contribute with a video about this bonsai. I hope you enjoy it. And thank you, Gary.
Morning, my name is Gary Howes and I'm from KwaZulu-Natal, Durban, and I'm here to talk about the Commiphora species, in particular the woodii or forest corkbark. This is only one of 31 species of Commiphora that occur in South Africa. It's probably lesser known in terms of being seen on shows, the more common being the Harveyii or paperbark. It has a much smoother bark. We'll just get a little bit of a close-up here and you'll see it's a much more grayer, smoother bark that occurs on this particular species. In general, I don't collect Commiphora because they're just so easy to sort of grow from cuttings, and even large truncheons you can take, and they grow particularly well from that. Like a baobab, if you take a cutting, you let it dry out for about 2 weeks and then plant it and water it once and leave it till it starts shooting. In terms of management of pests, they really are very hardy in terms of pest control. It's very few things that attack them. The only things that I usually get that attack them is aphids, and that comes out when there's new growth, and the new growth is usually yellow, red in appearance, and that's the time that obviously aphids love to attack that young sort of saplings. In terms of wiring or styling, I would not recommend that you wire these in summertime because of the sap flow that they have. In general, they snap and break quite easily. It's better to allow them to drop their leaves in the sort of May, June, and then they are very malleable in terms of wiring. Cut and grow works particularly well for them as well. And in terms of general watering, well, as the common name can't do it or cannot kill, they are really drought resistant. You have to put them in full sun to get the best growth out of them. I have most of them planted in exceptionally shallow containers, and they do very, very well. So water wise, very easy to maintain, and very pest resistant they are. Sad to say that I've only ever seen this species, which is mine, on a show. I've never seen any other of the Commiphora species in any shows. So if anybody else has them, I would love to see what they have in their collections. And if there's any questions regarding this species, you're welcome to contact me anytime. Thank you very much.
Liam, yes, we've discussed that neglector. Now this is the Harvey eye, and this is the one most used by people in South Africa. And so this is actually the one I wanted when I got to know them in Durban, and accidentally bought the other one. I was given this as a tall tree, and I cut the whole top off, and which was this tree. I don't know if the camera will get it, the second tree. So that was actually a truncheon cutting. I just stuck it in the ground, and it took. And this scar where I took it off totally healed. It only two little branches here. I can show you a picture. And then later it made a third one, and I'm growing this as a baobab type style, and it just shows the diversity of styles these things can grow. From formal to very informal to slanting, everything. I mean, you can just about do any style of this. So this is my baobab. This thing came off at the top here, like I said, very easy to grow, and it had a branch here, which was this tree, the third one. Grew there, and I took it off, and I had a massive scar there, which I'll show you a photo as well. And in a couple of years' time, that healed. Yes. I actually applied that method that I learned from Terry Erasmus, where you cut the cambium and seal it, and it's totally closed now. So that's one of the absolutely wonderful characteristics of grey things. They heal like anything. Yeah.
What I wanted to mention is that now we've actually seen, just in your collection alone, a diversity of styles that can be done with the species.
Yes.
What I also want to mention that is, in my book, Anthony Smith, who was the owner at the time, the example in the book is also a baobab Commiphora that was originally owned by Derek Veldhuizen.
Yes.
So, and I think that they are very lending to baobab style because truncheon cuttings can be made from them.
Very easy, yes. And thick truncheons, actually. Yeah.
Another technique that they are very successful with is defoliation.
Oh, yes.
And Yaku, it wasn't long ago that you and I defoliated and cut this back. What was that, about a month ago?
Not even, I think probably about 3 weeks, or
yes.
Maybe a month. That we defoliated this, and you helped me with the tree was much taller. We
yes.
brought it way down, which I'm very glad you helped me
yes.
with. We cut off all the terminal buds,
yes.
and it's now growing again. And I went on holiday for 2 weeks, and it was bare. And I came back after 2 weeks, and this is what it looks like. So
yes.
it just grew. The leaves have reduced already. If you look at this one, but I can possibly defoliate once more this season,
yes.
and then it will make much more ramification and smaller leaves. So very good for defoliation. Yes.
I think that this illustrates the principle that I believe in is that I believe that there's not much point in defoliating, and if you're going to still leave the terminal buds.
Yes.
And after we defoliated and cut this back hard and got rid of all the terminal buds, the incredible amount of back budding that has happened here, and I'll actually insert the photograph after we cut it that day, so that you can actually appreciate the amount of ramification that's happened after just one cut.
Yes, and that's what you want. You want ramification, which then gives smaller leaves. Yes.
This was the piece that came off there.
This one was a branch here. Yeah, it came off here, and it was a massive big scar, and it's totally healed. So this one needs a pot, and talking about pots. Because they're quite rustic trees and they got this flaky bark, and that I always believed in rustic, unglazed brown pots, which I still believe it looks nice in. But then you helped me with picking this pot on this one. So this is still a tree in training, hence those long branches. I want to make it quite a wide type style. But just look at this, how this or glazed pot. It's not brightly glazed, but look how that suits this tree. Yeah.
I was very excited when I saw this tree in this pot, because I thought that this was an excellent pot choice. The pot choice with the color of this like coppery bark, I think it was speaking to me. The one thing that I would like to say about Commiphora is I always called it the gift to South African bonsai. And it's a bonsai for all seasons, because We can appreciate them when they bear of leaves in winter to appreciate this bark. In summer, they absolutely look wonderful with their foliage, but also their flowering and their fruiting. The other thing that the Commiphora will do is it will have very bright lemon yellow leaves in autumn.
That's right.
Yep.
No, it's definitely a tree for all seasons.
All
And you
seasons.
can enjoy it every season.
It was because of its deciduous habit that I actually believe that they also diverse enough to be in glazed pots, which is the kind of textbook rule for deciduous trees.
Yes, yes.
What I have here, Yaku, which like Gary's, is the woody eye. So the forest corkwood or the bos Conniedoet. And I actually deliberately put this in a red glazed pot to see what you thought about it. You know, what did you think about this pot choice? I think that it's a little bit for me like a Chinese glaze, but I would love to have like maybe a slightly duller glaze like yours and a bit more of a blood red. I'm very partial to red pots, and I don't know what you thought about it, but that was my experiment to see what you thought about this sort of like red glazed pot with my woody eye.
Like I said, it was never my style. I like rustic pots, but looking at this, it actually suits it perfectly. It's something different. I think when the leaves turn and you got contrast, it's beautiful. So I totally agree with it. And I tempted to, when I do this little one later, to go glazed maybe.
Yeah. The observation that I'd like to make about mine is that just like you, Yaku, I thought I was getting a Harvey eye. And then only much later, I realized that it's actually the woody eye. And I bought it from a bonsai nursery in Johannesburg. And after having it for several years, I thought it's time to repot it. And when I did decide to repot it, there was hardly any roots.
Same as mine, yeah.
The other observation that I'd like to make about it is that actually the branches can stay alive without leaves on for a very long period of time. And I think the reason that they can do it is that a very interesting trait about the genus is that the woody eye is the only species that doesn't have the flaky bark. But when the bark flakes and reveals the green, it allows the plant to photosynthesize when it's leafless.
Yes. It actually photosynthesizes through the bark.
I think that the woody eye, what I've observed with mine so far is that after defoliation, what would often happen is that only this top section would grow. So there's almost this apical dominance. And after its most recent prune, you can actually see again now, it's only the top that's growing and the bottom branches aren't growing. The one thing that I'll never forget about my first Pretoria Bonsai Club meeting where you did the presentation was your observation with the species that it will often make very irregular branching habits. I actually never forget that you mentioned that it would almost sometimes make a branch like straight down perpendicular to the ground.
Yes.
That irregular branching habit that I thought is a characteristic of the tree, I've actually deliberately tried to achieve that with mine. So you will see that I could easily correct it with wiring, but in sort of traditional textbook bonsai designs, this is actually seen as a fault. But I actually see it as a trait of the species that I'm actually trying to embrace and enhance.
Yes, definitely. And it does it more with the neglector. That neglector is funny, it just goes straight down on some branches. Less so with the Harvey eye. But if you see it on the woody eye, it's a trait, yes.
I'm Johan Els of Pretoria Bonsai Kai. I'm speaking to you about the Commiphora, different species. This is the Pyracanthoides, and as you can see, it's got needle-like ends. And trust me, why it's called Pyracanthoides is because it's things like a Pyracanthus. A couple of observations: takes easy from cuttings, does not like to be repotted in growing season. So when you do that, it needs to be dormant. And please don't give it too much water. Make sure it has free draining soil. And yes, something interesting, something different in a Pyracanthoides of the Conniedoets. So yes, Conniedoet can do it if you give it too much water or put it in non-draining soil. So hope you enjoy. Have a blast. Bye.
Yaku, in conclusion, firstly, thank you very much for having Tian and I around.
It was a pleasure.
Yeah, and it's always a pleasure for us to come and visit your garden. In conclusion, I wanted if we could just start to list the pros and the cons. And I can tell you, after writing my book, all the genus and the species in the book always had like a pro and a con. It's like, got this, but then it's got that. But the Commiphora is definitely something that's got a lot more pros than cons.
Definitely, and if I can mention 2 or 3 of the cons, they are frost sensitive.
Yeah.
I've lost a few. I've lost some branches through frost, so I put mine away in the carrots at night in winter. And then it's easily root rot when you overwater, especially in winter when there are no leaves. You must be very careful. In fact, you must neglect it. That's better. So those are 2 of the. I can't actually think of more cons. It's the only 2 I can think of now.
Yes. What's also worth mentioning now is, Yaku, is that in your video with Romano, you actually mentioned that only some of the trees survived in Namibia when you were hospitalized. And most of the trees that survived that complete neglect were commiferous.
Correct, and it's because they were neglected. They didn't get water, and that's what they wanted. They, like I said in the beginning, they grow in warm, dry areas.
Yes.
And there was a blessing in disguise that they actually survived. So since moving here, I've lost a few, and it's through my own fault. I overwatered them.
Yes.
And they got frost, obviously. So, but now at least I know what to do.
If we summarized some of the pros that we've spoken about, like starting from the bottom, was the diversity of styles of pots they can be planted in.
Yes, they definitely suited to. Well, now that you've taught me using glazed pots, I agree with you. They suited to most pots and colors. I think we can experiment with more bright colors, maybe.
Yes.
I was going for these earthy colors, but maybe going brighter colors will suit them.
Also, it can be grown from truncheon cutting.
Very easy.
Yes. Actually, Gary mentioned that he actually doesn't really bother digging them like Yamadori because they can just easily grow from truncheon cutting.
Yes, definitely. Yes.
Diversity of styles that we've seen just in your collection alone.
Yes, I think you can go for any style. I don't know if I've seen a cascade. I'm sure they will go in cascade too.
They are notably pest and disease free.
I've hardly ever seen anything, and if I do something, you can pick them off by hand. I never use any insecticides or pesticides, so they're very pest free.
Respond well to defoliation. A very good response to clip and grow. This one's exclusively been styled in clip and grow.
Definitely, yes.
But also responds very well to wiring.
Yes, they do. They do bite. Wire does bite in quickly because they're quite fast grow. So you must look at it. Yeah.
Well, fast growing is another pro.
Yes.
And a bonsai for all seasons that we've mentioned earlier on.
Definitely, and the big thing is the flowers and the fruit. I mean, that's so beautiful on them. You've seen on that neglector all the little fruits they've got. Yeah.
I always wondered about something that's always hard for me to imagine, which is the bipolar opposite to us, is growing bonsai in the Western Cape with the winter rainfall. And I actually asked some growers in the Western Cape, how did they go about growing Commiphora in this like winter rainfall when we assume that they are so sensitive to overwatering in winter? And the answer to my surprise was a very, very free draining soil.
Yes.
And they actually stayed out in the rain in the Western Cape's rain all through winter, and no problem.
Wonderful. Shows how hardy they are. Yes.
Yeah. All right.
Yes, and the flaking bark, that's a pro. They look nice with leaves, without leaves. They make ramification and just tough trees. Yeah. And if I may say, I've mentioned 38 species in South Africa. I've known of 5 or 6 that we're growing. Yeah. I'm sure there's scope for us to experiment more and get some of those unknown species, and maybe we'll have a lot of success growing more of the subspecies of the genus.
Thank you for having us, Yaku.